Hello and welcome back to Spirit Lounge. Hope you guys are doing well. So just turning on the microphone there. And thanks for joining our continuing journey through the Shinto, the Japanese Shinto. Today we're going to continue on with the journey. Went through the history and some of the early descriptions of what the shrines, the jinja, is, and a brief introduction. Today we're going to go into the idea of Harai and transition into there. So let's move straight into this. Okay, so the idea of Harai. Now, Shinto, as we've gone through, is a native to Japan and is centuries old in terms of its long-lived history and influences and origin. From a historical perspective, it's gone through many iterations, very derivatives, but the original was Koshinto. And had Buddhist influence and other religious influences from around the region as they spread across the world, and they had a restoration period around the Edo period where those influences were removed. It started thousands of years ago, pre-AD, in BC, and was about the worship of spirits. Spirits are regarded as being in everything, from inanimate to animate objects in nature and throughout into the cosmos and infinite. They also have a kami. These spirits are called kami, and there are various grades of kami. There are lower, upper, but there's also a singular source kami as well. So although this author, or Motohisha Yamakage, does speak of it not having a specific doctrine or a god specified, it doesn't specify a doctrine, doesn't specify it doesn't specify a specific divine or holy book. It doesn't specify a god, it doesn't specify a founder, nor does it specify a holy place. All of those things are strictly not there, but the precepts of them do exist. So the structures that we expect in some traditional religions are actually there in Shinto, although they're not explicitly specified as such, and you'll find that as we walk through this journey. Okay, the idea of Harai. It is said that Shinto begins and ends with Harai. One original interpretation means repaying reciprocal obligations and so restoring balance. According to the degree of the misdemeanor or offence, people give offerings to kami in order to clear away their transgressions. Now, what does this sound like? This is effectively karma, as it actually says here. Word harai, meaning of shaking dust off in order to become clean or to make things clean. What does this mean? Shedding karma. Now, karma is much more, it's a distorted energy pattern, in other words. Karmic energy is the frequency of our actions, words, thoughts and intentions we propagate out as our soul moves towards the right and integrates with the spirit. And the reflection, when it originated, was one. But when we move into the material form or the fall of man, or the fall of into creation, into matter, the soul detaches and moves further and further away from it, and in some cases moves into complete darkness. Now, along this way, we create non-distorted and distorted energy patterns from actions, words, thoughts and intentions. This is what's called karma. This distorted energy must be balanced. It's in our own stream. We own it perpetually, infinitely, forever, eternally. To become one with the reflection of our Father, the grace, the God, the divine Godhead, the creating force, we are to purify ourselves. We are to balance all distortion, in other words. And what that means is moving away the distorted energy that's created through our karma. And that does sometimes come in through experiences for us to be tested again, to see if we would do the same things over and over. Now, just performing ritual, a sacrifice or a simple act doesn't necessarily mean we balance that karma away. It does have a contributing factor to it, but it must be consistent and long term. And your inherent patterns must change. Your energy within yourself must change for those distortions to be balanced. Instead of distorted, they are balanced. So in some ways, Harai is trying to address that, but it doesn't stress the importance and the power of karmic energy and imbalance and distortion within our own creative footprint. And this is one thing there. I think it seems to suggest you can do Harai and get rid of all things that you must do. It's not as simple as that. Atonement by purification. The season Haru, which meaning spring in Japanese, implies expansion, vitality or life. It gives vitality and force to spirit and soul, which with the soul is called Reikon. The word Harai contains within itself the deeper meanings that form the basis of Shinto. The first of these is that we become spiritually clean by washing away our errors and misdeeds. Not so simple as that. Secondly, we achieve this goal of cleanness by making offerings for expiation for our own body and mind. This is the third meaning of Harai. Harai with heaven or celestial cleansing, the third meaning. Harai, there have been three categories of heaven, earth and humanity since ancient times. So different levels of cleanness. Purification with Harai through heaven involves receiving spiritual light from the spirit of Kami, the spirit of the word Kotodama, or the spirit of sound Otodama. So effectively we're doing cleansing from an earthly perspective, a humanity perspective, from an earthly perspective, and then we're seeking maybe a blessing from heavenly spirits or ascended Kami to help also provide cleanness within those energy distortions from actions, word, thoughts, or misdemeanors or offence in this case as it's described that we perform throughout life. But remember, karmic distortion is multi-incarnational. So as I said, it is not that simple as to perform a couple of rituals and so on and so forth. Cleanness rituals and acts and ceremonies, prayers and offerings doesn't necessarily mean everything is shed. The Harai of spiritual light from the spirit of Kami, just to finish off on that, touching into your soul and allowing yourself to be given the knowledge and gnosis of what truly is, will tell you whether or not these things are being shed and the distorted energy is being balanced. You'll know if you're honestly and truthfully honest with the soul's honest with you, with the self, and its movement towards the light and the mirror of the spirit on the right. It will always tell you. And forgiveness of self and others is important. Forgiveness is actually core to a lot of states of this expansion and ascensions to spiritual frequency. The Harai of spiritual light from the spirit of Kami signifies the worship of Kami and cleansing of oneself by receiving sacred vibrations. Most people are under the impression that they have finished all purification work after doing Harai. As I've mentioned before we got to this point, that's exactly the case. It is not all done. This is only a preliminary Harai ritual for making contact with Kami. Real purification comes after the necessary amount of cleanness is achieved and Harai Nusa at this point. So it's talking about persistence and long-term change. And I don't espouse to just continually doing ceremonies, practices, and offerings as being the thing. It has to be within your change. You have to have an energetic, spiritual change within yourself, and your continued everyday microsecond actions, word, thoughts, and intentions also must change, emitting a different vibration, which creates balance also. At this point, one offers prayers to Kami to be cleansed in a true sense as the original way of purification to the spiritual light of Kami spirit. The spirit of the word is the word that has mystical power, impregnated with the grace, that is to say, the authority and glory and virtue of the spirit of Kami. From early Japan, a famous poet sang, "The country of Shikishima Yamato is truly blessed, because the spirit of the word," remember the Gospels of Christ are the word, the same thing in Shinto, divine meaning, word. This means the teachings or the guidance that kami are giving is regarded as being the word, in this case authority, glory and virtue. But it's the same thing as the Gospels of Christ, that's in the biblical text and all other texts. They are the word being the presence of grace in the direction and guidance that is received. It has been said since mythological times that the country of Yamato is the beloved land of Emperor Kami, where the spirit of the word is flourishing. That Japan enjoys the protection and blessings of the spirit of the word. It means the highest Kami. Japanese have all believed, make people happy by saying good words. The words which make people happy are called kotohogi, meaning celebrated words. So they have words. Now, it is said that every word in language, particularly the English language, has a spell. If we use certain words in certain ways, then those that have created those words put spells on those words, and then when you say them, your energy goes to the direction in which they have directed the intention of that word. Such as, I'll give you an example, when people pray and say, my Heavenly Father, you and I would assume that means the divine Godhead, the creating force, the Father of Father, the All of the All. But there are those in the dark, the far left, who believe they put spell on the word Father, and that when anyone who says Father and prays, they're talking about the Pope. It refers to the Pope, the energy goes to the Pope. That is not the case. Remember your intention. You are in control of the energetic intention of everything that occurs from your entity, your being, your space. So these things can be there if people want to believe them, but your energy intention guides all force from you. The spirit of the word comes from the spirit of Kami. For awakening that spirit, purifying words, these Shinto ritual words can be found in the book Engishiki. This has generally been handed down through the ages as a chant used in facing Kami. People repeated this prayer 100 or even 1,000 times as the 100 purifications. The spiritual power concealed in the great purifying words, O Harai no Kotoba, is widely acknowledged to be immense. So in other words, they've got chants and prayers with certain words or structured phrases and passages that you repeat over and over and over again. All faiths have an element of this in certain books called, in this case, they're called good words. But in other faiths, they're called something else. But they're also called prayers, chants, cleansing passages that you can repeat over and over again in prayer that would help perform cleansing energy by calling upon a more elevated frequency of grace. The idea of Harai continued. The mystery of the great purifying words. At the age of 18, this is the author, I began chanting the great purifying words from memory. This was at 1943. I was near death and bedridden with pulmonary tuberculosis. I began chanting the great purifying words while being able to commit the words to memory and recite them in full. A miracle occurred. I recovered my health to the point that I was able to pray in a sitting posture. It took 7 minutes to complete the entire prayer. My health improved seemingly because of the great purification words. Whilst walking, I chanted the great purification words. Since we chant these words with energy from the abdomen, and that's also something I want to emphasize, when you pray or do any kind of chant or a prayer of forgiveness, you must speak it out aloud and not from the throat. It must be from the chest, from the body. You see, as they're projecting it from the abdomen, which means you're praying, you're speaking it very loudly. This gives force to it, to speak from within the body, from the neck down, not from the throat. There are a lot of cultures that speak crocally from the throat. Throat energy is weaker, far weaker than the energy that comes from the chest and the abdomen. From speaking out aloud and letting those words vibrate from inside the body when you speak them. I do prayers of forgiveness every day, and I speak them out loud. As you can hear from my voice, I do not speak from the throat. I do not croak. It's coming from the body, and the chest is deeper. That's when you pray, do that. Stand up straight, look forward, and look confidently with a strong spine, and speak the prayer. Speak in a private place. If you cannot be in a private place, of course, it's more quietly, but try to make sure those quiet words are from the center of the body, not from the throat. Okay, it naturally creates the repetition of deep breathing from the bellow. This way, from beneath the belly, in other words. This way of breathing is called the long breathing method. In Shinto, the power in the physical body is increased. If one chants this prayer with the whole heart, it's possible to erase all unnecessary worldly thoughts. What he's trying to say here is that when you're actually deeply saying something with passion, with strength from within the body, from the abdomen and projecting out with vibration and force, it encapsulates your entire being. Your attention is brought to what you're doing. So if one is speaking just from the mind and from the throat, it's not, the attention is weaker, and therefore otherworldly thoughts can enter while you're speaking. If it's from within and projecting, your entire focus changed, and that's why this is where it's saying it can erase all unnecessary worldly thoughts. Then all uncleanness and impurity with the brain disappears. Kotodama is more than simply that of physical matter. This mysterious power cleanses the bad vibrations of malice and poison, which is Magatshui. Okay, the great incantation of Dejindu, of Yamakage Shinto, which is the original one, the original form. In Yamakage Shinto, even more mysterious and powerful spiritual incantations will exist. Aji Marikamu, the syllable mu is pronounced as an N, with the mouth tightly shut. In Yamakage Shinto, incantation as the spirit of the word existed since the beginning of heaven and earth. The point of origin of the universe, a memorial service or prayer for activation of Jirei, self-spirit, in other words, the higher self. The Jirei is regarded as the self, the higher self, which we call the soul. We chant this incantation. Our tradition tells us that you can acquire supernatural power if you chant it 1,000,000 times. Harai of the Spirit of Sounds, Otodama, report that they sense a room to be very pure and clean after good music has been performed there. Well, that's just like cleansing, isn't it? Positive vibration music in a home or an area with positive vibrations from people progressed over many, many days, months, weeks, years, changes the energy of that place, of your own room, of your own space, of yourself. A high level of purifying vibration, akin to the European tradition of organ music. In Shinto, the drum is used. So you see a lot of Japanese, Asia, particularly the drum is a central instrument. Represents the sound of a big ocean, the deep vibration rhythm of it. The rhythm or vibration of the drum has the power of purification. When good music is played, the fermentation of sake improves the flavour and taste. So in other words, when you're fermenting sake and you play good music, it changes it. That may be actually where some of the very expensive sake and how it's fermented. Plants respond positively to music to aid their growth. Harai with earth and salt. Process of cleansing, so there's different ways of harai. So you can do it with sound, and this case you can do it with earth and salt. Process of cleansing with earth, 3 elements are involved: water, soil and salt. Cleansing through water is of course misogi, as we've described in the previous video. When we use sand from a beach in order to purify the premises, salt is important as a cleansing and purifying agent. Salt is sprinkled over the person coming home from a funeral. Now this is common in cultures where if you're coming home for a funeral, you must shower, you must wash yourself, hands and feet and so forth before coming into a home. You must shower immediately and remove the old clothes and so forth. Scattered over the sumo wrestling arena, again, to purify it, or when it is piled up at the entrance of a sushi shop. Also, salt is put around a home sometimes where they think it's just to prevent energies from getting in, and also sometimes preventing energies from coming out. These customs in Japan, salt is a major component of ocean water. Ocean water is the very basis and essence of life. The component. Remember, it was said in the misogi. The idea of misogi is that you cleanse yourself with ocean water. This is the original way the early Japanese used to cleanse themselves because they were access. They were near oceans. The ocean, as there were islands and seafaring, and so they had access to it. But if you cannot, then there's different ways of cleansing yourself. But the ocean water was seen as the premier way of doing that. And the essence of life, the components of body fluid, sodium, magnesium, potassium and calcium found in ocean water. Sea salt contains these in good and proper balance. So you can use sea salt and tap water, I would say. Harai with human beings. There are two methods of cleansing of the human spirit. First, cleansing with a purifying object shaped to resemble a human being. Second, cleansing through purifying fire. Imi means sacred. So imibi is a sacred and special fire. In Katashiro, materials typically used for rendering the human form are steel, plants, tree bark and clay. Most popular material is paper. So they're making forms and effigies of the individual to cleanse it, using that rendering of the image, and then using fire as being the purifying force. Paper was invented in China and introduced to Japan during the Nara period of 710 and 794, and it created the shape of the Gohei. Gohei, the spiritual antenna by which the spirit of karma can descend and manifest its presence. Remember, they had the paper figure in the shrine, the mirror was in the back, the rope at the top, the paper effigy or figure at the front are all representations of kami, and also the reflection of kami through the mirror, and the protection of spirit, negative energy with the rope at the top. Eventually the Gohei itself becomes a symbol of kami, as the kami ascends into it through the ceremony and prayer and ritual. In Shinto, kami and human beings are of the same shape. Paper gradually supplanted the more ancient uses of bark from Japanese cypress or cedar, so it's more common to use paper these days. Before, in the past, they used tree bark and possibly clay. Migawari Harai, which means cleansing with a substitute for a real person, it was used as an object for prayer, or sometimes even for a curse. Now this is going into black magic and voodoo, and I don't touch on those things. I don't dismiss anything in life. I don't dismiss anything in form. I don't dismiss anything in terms of the probability and possibility, and the infinite stream of realms of probability and possibility in life. Energy can be used in all manner of ways. The force of it, however, is determined by the amount of fear and the belief that someone has in it. So, can people seek to try to put a curse on others? They can with their own rituals. Does it always work? No, not necessarily. But, energy can be used for many different ways, and sacrifice, even for curses, demonic practices, satanic, Luciferian, usually means the killing of something. And it usually means a human being for the most part. I won't go into those things, but yes, they can be used. Latter purpose has nothing to do with Shinto, of course. This is the curses. The Heian period of 7094 to 1185 onwards, I think this is probably 1094 to 1185, not 77, onwards, custom to seek purification in Kiyomi, eliminating of some misfortune or calamity, by throwing the hitogata into a river or stream, or burning it in the fire after it had been absorbed all impurity or bad vibrations. So effectively what we're saying, they create the effigy of the individual. And it used to become a ritual to basically get good luck and to eliminate misfortune or calamity in life. And they do the ritual of prayer and ceremony to bring down the kami, but also in the shape of the effigy they make of the impression of the individual is to put the negative energies and vibrations or misdemeanors into it, and then during the ceremony burn that, and therefore burning away misfortune or calamity that they project into this specific object. The hitogata is wrapped in an additional sheet of white paper and a prayer is written on it. This is the hitogata, this is you. The paper is burned. Yamakaji Shinto. In Yamakaji Shinto, a tradition of esoteric methods associated with different form of prayer, improving human relations, a good marriage, passing exams, healing illness. So this ritual, this practice can be used for many, many different reasons. People might consider these superstitious. I, being the author, have directly experienced these spiritual powers. Hitogata, the human-shaped paper image, does possess the power to absorb bad vibrations. The paper having rubbed the affected part of a sick person with it, we find tubid black ash left over after the burning. So what they're basically saying, you do the ceremony, then you rub the effigy or the representation of the person over a specific part of the body which is having an ailment. When you burn that paper, it leaves over a turpid black ash. Preparing hitogata, it can become tainted before it is used because it has already attracted and absorbed the vibration of the afflicted person for whom it has been made. A mysterious dimension which is hard to understand for a rational mind. Hirogata are also used in the four corners of a room to protect the space against bad vibrations. So are mirrors and so on, Feng Shui is similar. When these hirogata are burnt, the flame might turn into a poisonous green and the ashes are turbid black. This kind of indicates negative energy. For such as when you sage a home, if you sage a home with a bowl and real quality, high quality sage, it said that if you go into a room where there isn't any negative energy, then it will just emit smoke, like a little tinder or a little smoke. If you go into a room where there's really bad energy, the sage will actually start to light up, flame up, and produce more smoke. It does this through some other force and sense, but it can detect as you go around a house and sage cleanse a house. By the way, sage cleansing does work because I've used it myself. Fire, a strong purifying power. Kami of fire has been treated as a chief or primary. For the ancients, fire was spirit as well as the sun. Brought them warm rays, it lights up the darkness, cooks food and creates pottery and metals. Ancient people sensed the mysterious nature and vitality of fire. They thought that in fire there was an unclean fire as well as a purifying fire. So they're kind of splitting up the nature of a fire. Imibi cleans the body. We should burn the bad vibrations absorbed during the katashiro cleansing practice. We cannot really separate katashiro cleansing from imibi cleansing. The two processes go together. In Yamakaji Shinto, which is original form, the fire ceremony in order to purify the souls of our ancestors or relatives. What is Kigare? The theory of Harai is Shinto's unique approach to humanity. In both the Great Purification Ways and the Misogi Purification Ways, Misogi means cleansing with water, human error and uncleanness are considered coterminous, i.e. boundaries in space and time. We can completely remove error and uncleanness by washing them away with Misogi or purifying them with Harai. material dirt that can be expunged by washing. So in other words, you can do both practices, the cleanliness through misogi and the burning away or the removal of uncleanness and error through Harai. As long as we completely remove sin, fault and uncleanness by washing them away through misogi or Harai, then that will be enough. I question that as persistent. Remember, it's within the self where the change really happens, karmically. Analyze the nature of sin as it is found in classical Japanese writing. So it's interesting, isn't it, that Shinto actually originated from the observation of nature, humans' interaction with nature, and living in balance with the world, i.e. Gaia. And all these practices and ceremonies came out of that symbiotic relationship with nature and the surrounding world, the earth, the sky, the seas, the energies, the wind, and so forth. But then we've gone into kind of practices as it's moved on into ceremonies and rituals to remove uncleanness. In other words, balance karma in this case, although it doesn't use karma as a word, because remember, in Buddhism was removed in the Edo period, and therefore karma wasn't used. And actually, the introduction of Buddhism into Shinto created temples. There weren't any shrines, physical temples or shrines in early classical Shinto because they didn't exist. It was Buddhism, the introduction of Buddhism, that created those. But it's moved into this kind of space, so it's become less about. It continues to include the synergistic nature with nature, synergistic approach with nature rather, but it's also become more of a how you could call it, esoteric, occultic, religious, conceptual practice, faith as well in some ways. Shinto does not preach the idea of absolute sin. Shinto expresses the concept of no sin, the inherent goodness of nature. In Shinto, the essence of spirit soul within human beings is a gift from Kami. So it is considered flawless and perfect even if humans err. Now, with this essence of spirit soul, I would equate that to the divine breath. It is pure and perfect. The error is the spirit, is the soul. The spirit is the purity, the spirit and the soul, as it says here. The error is contained within the action itself, and it will not follow the person. This is not true. So they believe that you can do anything you want, it's just an act, and you can do these practices, and the influence of the act just goes away. It's not the case. Your imprint of soul is eternal. It is of grace. It is within the divine essence of all that is. The footprint we have from the dawn of the manifestation of the breath of God that creates a divine spirit, that is you and I, the uniqueness of us, each individually, is eternal. We'll never die. We're infinite. We'll exist to the dawn of infiniteness until the Father decides that there is no more manifestation. This will not exist either. It's just continuous. It's eternal. And your energetic vibration stays. This is the karmic energy footprint that we have, and we balance it, we imbalance it, we distort it, we don't distort it. This is the Akasha. This is the infinite record of our divine footprint, from manifestation of breath to existence throughout all incarnational form and formlessness, animate, inanimate, in matter and energy. So it does go with us, so it's not true. This is a false premise. In Shinto, that once we wash away error in a river or ocean, misogi, it will vanish completely with the dirt of the body. This is delusional. Its emphasis upon our being is removed, because if we balance karmic energy from as much as possible through life, then life actually becomes what we call blessed. Really, this is moving towards the true spirit of life, which is moving towards the reflection of grace. But it doesn't just simply go away. It's always there, and a simple diversion of action, word, and thought can recreate it. So it's delusion in my eyes. This sense of this explanation. And maybe if the book that I was reading, had more depth into this space, it would explain it further, but it doesn't. And it's actually difficult to find a book on Shinto that is goes into real depth. I've found it difficult to find one, actually. Error and fault are mistakes committed by immature souls. Well, yes, souls that are losing their way. Not sins in the Western sense of the world. No, they're not sins. The sins, what is a sin? A sin is doing something egregious. A sin is doing something that is not acceptable or more egregious than a normal mistake. So the different levels, I suppose, but they're all actions, words, thoughts, and intentions that we need to balance, regardless of what kind of form or degree of action that they are. This is talking about original sin, right? This is talking about the Adam and Eve story and so forth. But I don't go down that path because it's not one I espouse. Shinto treats these faults as if they were forms of matter. Committed consciously or faults that are unconscious are both actions and that become a form of semi-substance. This is energy. Semi-substance is karmic energy. Distortion or none is distortion. You can have positive karma, indifferent karma, or distorted karma. Invisible memory, in the innermost level of consciousness or within the physical body. Also recorded in space, earth, universal memory, or collective consciousness. Absolutely is what I was saying. It's persistent. It does never go away. The footprint stays eternally. It follows that we can wash away error, fault, and uncleanness through the use of spiritual energy or vibration, but it has to be persistent and it has to be from within self. Not just doing a few random acts. This is not the way it works. Okay, in Shinto, the nature of human beings is considered to be essentially good. Well, yeah, most human beings start off being good. But I've always said your soul is the footprint, is your garment which covers the being, the energetic being that enters life. Your soul is your garment that you wear, that you've tainted, that we've all tainted as we would be here. It's not purity of the spirit. The soul is the garment that we must cleanse. And so human beings are inherently good when they're very, very, very young, but as you get older, the influences of your soul's garment start to emerge. This is where the life pattern starts to emerge. And the vibration and experiences of that soul garment will appear in your life in some way. Crossroads will appear, do this, do that, not do this or not do that. It will come in and you'll see what decisions you make this time round, whether or not that soul's garment becomes lighter or does it become more stained and tainted. It's really up to you. Shinto does not preach original sin. Even if we can commit sin, as long as we remove and dissolve the sin through purification, we'll be restored to cleanliness. As I said, it's much more complicated than that. It's from within self. And it goes on throughout life. Human beings have the potential to become kami, i.e. spirit. They are spiritual beings. Well, we are already spiritual beings. Without the divine breath within us, we wouldn't live. There wouldn't be anything. Our soul is it's that expression. We're trying to make our soul the reflection of the spirit. This is talking about that beings have the potential to become kami. Human beings are most definitely not kami, but within us there is naho, now, hino, mitama. This means original, pure, and upright spirit. This is now himatama is the divine breath, the spirit. This is where I was referring to before. The author seems to suggest that this doesn't follow traditional religious philosophies or interpretations, but actually it does. It does, beneath it, it does. It might not have a documented book. It might not have a source. It might not have a founder. It might not have any holy places. It may not usually have temples. But religion, what is it? Faith. It's about spirit. It's about lower vibration, upper vibration. And there are astral energies and forces all the way across, cascading that spectrum towards the Father itself. And it manifestly is admitting that by saying now hinotama. is the pure upright spirit, which is for me is the divine Father's breath. This is the one that waits for us on the right in the narrow channel as we move through the broad towards it, and our soul moves towards it. The spark of divine light, again, as we mentioned, out of the creator kami of the universe, the creating force, the creator, creating energy, and the Godhead. This spirit has the same quality as kami. Kami is just another word for spirits. But they have different gods, different forces of kami representing different things. But on an infinitesimally smaller scale, this is Bunrei, the spirit child of kami, akin to the bud of a plant. It is the task of humans to nurture that bud so as to eventually become kami. There you go. This is exactly that past this paragraph. Why I pulled it out is explaining exactly what we've been discussing on this video and previous. Despite what the author is saying in what Shinto is, it's not like Western religions. It doesn't follow the same principle. Yes, it does. It's calling the Bunrei being the soul, the bud, the thing within us that has detached from the spirit of the Father, which is called which is now Hinomitama, the divine breath. The Bunrei is here. It's moving towards the right to become what's called kami, the upper divine source kami, which is now Hinomitama, the divine breath. And the Bunrei is moving towards it, which is the child, akin to a bud of a plant. This is describing the same journey that every other faith in the world describes. It doesn't matter about the religious book, it doesn't matter about the religious temple or effigy, idol, cave, mountaintop, it doesn't matter about a spiritual leader, it doesn't matter about whether there was a founder, it doesn't matter about how it describes original sin or not, or any of these things. The ultimate journey of all faith, as we've described in all videos that we're doing, all faiths and practices, belief systems that we're following, as Yeshua, Jesus, described, is the way. What is the way? The way is the many-pronged path. You choose one, but ultimately there is one narrow channel. The way back to the Father, which is the divine light, in this case, now Hinomitama, and the Bunrei moving towards it. It's the same principle all the time. I've read anything to date that has not said and described the same passage. Ultimately, underneath the very foundation of everything out there on this earth plane is the same. This is why humanity has distorted the underlying principle of everything, that every faith, every practice, every religious book, just remove all the surface dialogue. What is it asking you to do? What is all faith asking you to do? This is the harmony of them all. This is why they're all the same. Because there's one beginning, one end, one target for all manifestation. That's where you go. And that is what I'm trying to pull out of this. This is Shinto is described as being very different, it came out of nature, but this passage is like every other religious faith. We shouldn't be killing each other over our faiths, but actually underneath it, that central passage, the bud moving towards the light, is what they all want you to do. So there is uniformity in all, is there not? Yamakaji Shinto, following expression: I who have been manifest in this world as one spirit reflect four lights. This is what it's saying. One spirit, four souls. We'll be going into that in a different chapter. The original Great Spirit, which is Nao Himotama, the creator Kami of the universe, the Divine Father. The spiritual light of Kami dwells in the core of our spirit soul. Even though human beings are tainted with sin, faults, or uncleanness while living in this world, we just move. This is just the soul moving away, forgetting the Father, forgetting the divine all, and moving into materialism, ego. As we said, the fall of man is really the forgetting of the soul, of its source, of its creator, of its force, and moving into matter, moving into the materialism, moving into ego, moving into humanity. Remember, you're not of or from this world, but when you lose yourself, you become of and from this world. Your soul expression becomes of and from this world, and then therefore it attaches to it. This binds incarnation into this realm, binds incarnation into humanity. Okay, even though human beings are tainted with sin, faults and uncleanness while living in this world, they can rise in the rank of kami. This is just moving the soul towards the light. Frequency, dimensional, moving, gnosis. Everything you do, moving, when one does to move towards light, what is? It's the unveiling of knowledge. It's the unveiling of understanding. It's the unveiling of gnosis. The gnosis of the Father moves the soul towards it through internal absorption of that gnosis. Remember, energy, knowledge, truth, information is all energy. Energy is absorbed, gnosis is unveiled, the soul moves gradually closer. This is frequency, dimensional movement. Dimensions are just movement from loss to light, from grace to godlessness to grace. This is the choice. Now, everyone makes every microsecond of life, particularly in this paradigm that we live in today. Choices are being made. However, to do so, they must reflect on this uncleanness and cleanse themselves by the so-called adjustment of sight and hearing. Well, this is the adjustment of action, word, thoughts and intentions which come from sight and hearing. What you hear, what you see, develops as gnosis unveils itself. It can either be matter, material based, the sight and hearing, what comes to it, or it can be allowing yourself from the gnosis of the Father to allow to bring that to you. From within to without. Remember, the gnosis is powerful. It actually comes from within, outwardly, and expressed in such power and force that you think it's actually coming from external. When it truly happens, it's actually coming from inside. You feel it welling up from within you, it is tearful, but it's not actually coming from externally. They must know continuous improvement and progress as they aim to eventually rising to this high rank of kami. Two spiritual processes are known as shuri kosei, or renovation and maintenance. We cannot become kami simply through natural growth. We need spiritual training. It's persistence and practice and faith. This is what he's talking about, spiritual training. The word of love and charity in order to develop a clean and pure character. The idea of musubi, we may conclude. The concept of musubi signifies the proliferation of life and spirit. Musubi, or unification between the soul and spirit, or bunrei in Nahumitama, of man and woman also entails the procreation of life and spirit soul reikon. And so we call children musuko for boy and musumi for girl, which is unification. The basic religious idea of Shinto is the continuous process of creation. When we apply this principle to an individual spirit soul is also the bunrei being the bud, and now hino mitama is the divine breath that we're moving our bunrei or spirit soul or the reikon towards. The basic idea of Shinto is this continuous process of creation. When we apply this principle to an individual spirit soul, which is the reikon, musubi is the process of unification of work through which each person generates, grows, transforms, and develops now hinomitama, the innermost pure breath, the spirit. The first task is diligent care of bodily health. Well, of course, this is what I've written about in the book that I have out there in Amazon. Is you're responsible. Your vessel is what is guided, is what supports your experience in this life, in any life, any incarnation. If you do not take care of it, how is one expected to fulfill your intention for this life? Remember, early departure from this life is purely our responsibility. We must take care of the vessel. This is the mind. Remember that the Trinity, the togetherness is the soul and the heart, the mind, and the vessel of the body, the shaft of the body going down, which is the unification into spirit. We must look after all these and bring them into one. Second task is creating heart and mind or psychological growth. Remember, the heart and the mind together, the souls merging, is merging into those, and they're all guided by the spiritual breath. Thirdly, there is the creating of the spirit, that is to say, the purification of spirit, soul. Remember what I was talking about? The soul, heart, mind, the vessel of the body. This is for me the cross. Shinto views as harmful everything that obstructs the work of creation and cultivation. This could be true. This is true. Development. Everything that helps this work, by contrast, is deemed to be good. Shinto encourages a cheerful way of life, not a distorted one, and it views life as about the pursuit of happiness, rather rigorous admonitions or dogmatic rules. So yes, it doesn't have rules and admonitions, but it does have rituals, documented ways of doing things, and how to achieve this unity of the Reikon with now Hinomitama, which is the pure spirit, and that unification of Musubi, which is described here. And we must look after the mind, body, soul and spirit together. Unifying it is one. It has documented practices to do so. So it has rules, it has ceremonies. It does have these things, but it doesn't have a religious, defined, dogmatic, prescriptive, non-pragmatic book, which is true. In Shinto, there is no doctrine of absolute and final salvation. Well, I would disagree with that, because what is it describing? It's describing asking us to move our spirit soul towards the innermost pure spirit of Naohimatama. Well, this is salvation. That is salvation. Revelation is to know, is to reveal to oneself the essence and the reality of the Father. The salvation is to move towards the purity of the soul to the spirit, and to merge oneself back with the Father. This is salvation. This is the redemption that we all seek, is it not? So it does have a doctrine, and it does have an absolute, which is the Naohimatama, which is the absolute divine kami, and it does have a final salvation, being the moving of the Reikon into Naohimatama, which is the divine spirit, and creating unification, which is Musubi. So this denial from the author about where Shinto doesn't have this, it's different to all of the faith, it absolutely is not. It is exactly the same as all of the faith at the very core. It's exactly the same. And this is why I found it interesting that it seems that they're dogmatically wanting to be different, when it's actually denying that it's the same. Human beings continue to grow. Human beings keep growing throughout their lives, and after their lives on earth, they go to the other world. That's the Father. Continue living for renovation and maintenance. This is reincarnation. Keep growing until they eventually become kami. Purpose and intention for life is only that, and always will be that. So again, it's elements of Buddhism, elements of the soul moving into the spirit, from the left channel through the broad channel of all multiple tributaries of experience, to the narrow channel where you only see the divine light. This is the same message this is the unification process, and reincarnation and salvation is also described here. So for me, Shinto is the same. The principles underneath Shinto are the same. What is missing, which, as I said, doesn't matter if it's missing, because these are conduits of information and understanding to a faith, but the underlying principles of all things on this earth are the same. Everything humanity's created, the things that humanity creates, is what's missing from Shinto, it seems, or the author seems to be denying, is there's no holy book here. This is created by man. There's no divine temple. This is created by man. There's no founder, again, an originating human being. There's no holy divine place or a birthplace of an individual which they worship, a single expression of God on earth. They don't have that either. So that is true. But the precept for the reason of Shinto is the same. for the precept and the reason for all faith that exists. So I think this is the final slide here. It's churning on my laptop, so I'm going to wait for it to stop churning to move to the next slide, which it hopefully will do shortly. But you can see that where we've got to here with this, I know it's taken maybe, this is the 5th video I think, to get to this point, but we are starting to get to more of the meat. This is the most meatiest part of what we're trying to achieve and understand about Shinto. But you can see that it's very much the same. Remember, see grace only before you. The choice is godlessness or grace. Remember, ethics, morality requires boundaries. Boundaries requires a belief. Boundaries require the existence of grace within you. If you have nothing, nihilism, atheism, then you have no boundaries. Boundaries are a fleeting, subjective thing that you create all by yourself. Everyone who has no boundary of faith from within, driven by the soul moving towards the spirit, this musubi, unification, creates a boundary of grace. The grace is boundary to morality and ethics. Morality and ethics come from boundaries. There are no boundaries. You do not have morality and ethics in society. You have a notion that anything acceptable, this is the woke culture today. This is the liberalism which has gone astray into dark passages of atheism and the removal of boundaries where everything's accepted eventually because one just convinces one's ego to be feeling virtuous and self-righteous. Everything's accepted, all perversions are then allowed because there are no boundaries. And this is why you must see grace before you all times. Godlessness will always come to what will creep up if one loses their focus. The second coming is always you. The unification of Musubi is always you. The Reikon, the spirit moving towards the Naohinamatama, is always going to be you. And it must be transformative, not just virtue signaling, self-righteous, occasional ritual and practice when one wants something. This really doesn't do anything. So make it a realistic movement towards grace and see only grace before you in every action, word and thought. Okay, so I want to say thank you again for listening. This was nearly an hour long there, so I hope you guys persevered. Some of these will be an hour long because I've only got another 4 presentations to get through the entirety of Shinto, which I'm going to try to do another one today. And we should be done. And then the Dead Sea Scrolls are next, which I'm looking forward to reading because I've always been looking forward to be reading those. I've left it a while for a reason, but it's time for me to go into that. And as you can see, Shinto has the same message underlying to all of them, which is the purpose of the petals on your own flower, unveiling the golden center, which is the spirit itself. Okay, thank you for listening. Please share this with others as you may find that they find this useful to them. And I appreciate your time, and God bless you all, and take care until next time. Bye-bye.